Please do take a seat. I wonder tonight, folks, how many people have expectations of you? How many people have expectations of you? How many people's expectations are you trying to live up to? Now, we might like to answer that question by saying, no one. I'm not trying to live up to anyone's expectations, I'm just me. But I would challenge you on that, because if you care about someone, you care about what they think about you. And if you care about what they think about you, you want to live up to what you think you ought to be in their eyes. Now, I'm telling you this because with that comes pressure. There is pressure to live up to that standard. There is pressure to wonder, am I reaching that standard? And then if you are, there is the pressure to continue to reach that standard. Because we don't want to let these people we care about down. I want to talk to you about pressure tonight because we all face it, we all feel it, and it comes to us in a variety of different ways. And what we read about in this passage is 3 young men who have faced the pressure. They've faced the pressure to be what others want them to be. But the pressure they have faced is pressure to conform to be what others want them to be. To do and to be what their society, what their culture wants them to be, what their culture expects of them. And what we find in this passage is that these men resist that pressure, they handle that pressure, and they honor God in doing so. And so we're going to think about this theme together this evening as we go through this passage. The first thing I want to talk with you about tonight is the pressure to bow down. The pressure to bow down. As we jumped into this passage, we have King Neb. We're calling him King Neb and not King Nebuchadnezzar, because have you ever tried to type Nebuchadnezzar on a keyboard? Now try doing it 20, 30 times. King Neb is far, far easier. So it's King Neb. What is he doing in this? He's made a statue. Everyone's to bow down to it. His idea is, I'm going to make one religion for all the people. And what he does is he gathers this great bunch of list of people that we read about, the stirrups and the prefects and all that lot. And what are they? They are the leaders of the country. You have the head teachers of the school. You've got the politicians, the judges, the chief of police. And his idea is he builds this 90-foot statue and he says, when the music plays, all you leaders will bow down. Why? Because if all the leaders agree to it, then the rest of the people will just follow on and join in with it. Now, he's a friendly guy, isn't he? He says, if you don't bow down, I will have you thrown into a blazing furnace. We would call this a totalitarian regime. Something like North Korea or the Soviet Union was very much like this. And you might sit here tonight in Ullapool and think, well, that's interesting. This is all a million miles from me, but I'm telling you this because I don't think it's actually that far from what we face. It's actually not far removed from our own situation. Because we now live in the progressive, liberal Scotland. We are champions of people's rights, but along with that comes a huge amount of pressure that we are going to agree with and promote the same beliefs that our government insists that we adopt. Let me give you an example of this. The LGBT community has lobbied the government to get their position on gender fluidity and sexuality legally recognized. And it is now proposed that our nursery children, as young as 3, ought to be educated on their views. Now, please hear me when I say this. I'm not here to denounce those who have a different lifestyle from me, okay? I'm not homophobic. I've got gay friends. The church is not homophobic. It's often claimed to be that. Everyone is welcome in church, no matter what your sexuality or gender is. Everyone is welcome. Because I do not expect non-Christians to live as Christians. And you shouldn't expect that either. We have different views on these things. I may not agree with them, but I'm not insisting they live how I say is right, or how God says is right. I'm raising this issue with you because when I read about this proposal for our nursery kids, it made me think of this passage. Because what was suggested when this proposal came up is that maybe faith-based schools or parents of children who didn't agree with some of this material could say, look, that's fine, you can teach that, but I would like to opt my children out of that. And this is what was said. I quote, "To allow that would be a dangerous loophole and leave our young children ignorant." The National Teachers Union stood up and said, no one should have the right to opt out of this material. Like in our chapter, everyone is supposed to bow down to what the government is saying and accept it as the only view there is. Now, you're going to find this going on more and more in your country, and you might not have realized it yet. A colleague of mine recently spoke out on Twitter about abortion. He said he didn't agree with it. Do you know what he was criticized for? He was told that you're undermining women's rights by disagreeing with it. People came on to his status and they said, you're just an old-fashioned religious nut job. You just belong to a patriarchal religion and we should get rid of all the people like you. Here's the kicker. Following day, he opens up his emails. He's got an email from Twitter saying they are suspending his account for hate speech. I mean, the people who said his religion was worthless, they're not suspended. The people who said that men like him should be rid of, they're not suspended. But the guy who said, I disagree with abortion, that's hate speech. Why is that hate speech? Because our culture has a golden statue around this, and if you try and oppose it, they will remove your right to disagree. They will remove your platform to say, but I have a different opinion. You are supposed to bow down to what they tell you, and you're supposed to keep your mouth shut if you don't agree with them. I'm of no doubt you've all noticed the Pride movement. Every company is expected to have a Pride banner on show somewhere. And I thought it was interesting when Costa brought out their Pride cups. Caught my attention for two reasons. Number one, I love coffee. Costa don't make a latte how you're supposed to make a latte. They make it as a macchiato. And if you don't know the difference between a latte and a macchiato, I'll see you at the door. Second reason it caught my attention is because they stated their aim with this Pride Cups was to enable their employees to have courage and pride in who they are. And do you know what? I thought this is wonderful. I thought this is brilliant. I think people should be able to have pride and courage in who they are. But what I wanted to know is, did that pride and courage extend to the Christian as well? Are we allowed to take pride and courage in who we are? Is that allowed for us in the new liberal Scotland that we live in? Because if history shows us anything, it's not. Remember that case with the lady who worked for British Airways? She wore a necklace with a cross on it, and they said, you can't wear that. That's a religious article. Get it off. You ever think it was a bit strange that the Hindu was allowed to wear his turban, the Muslim was allowed to wear a hijab, but the Christian wasn't allowed to wear a cross? I always thought it's strange, isn't it, that if you're a politician and you're a Christian, you're grilled on your beliefs. Tell me, you ever heard a Muslim politician grilled the same way? I haven't. Nothing against them, not speaking negative of Muslims here. I'm just saying, I'm noticing there's a little bit of a difference in standards here. You might think, it's not true. Christians are fine. Do you know between the year 2000 and 2010, we're not talking long ago, most of us here were alive then, 2000 and 2010, 270 Christians were killed because of their faith every 24 hours. At the start of the year 2000 to 2010, 1 million Christians lost their life because of their faith. Tell me, folks, did you hear about that on the news? I bet you didn't. Because we're just a minority group that our country would rather we just were shutting up, staying to the side, keeping quiet. We're supposed to swallow what the government says. That's the only view. You bow down to the golden statues of your culture. You toe the line. That's what's expected of you. The pressure on us is that we bow down with our faith and say, Zada. King Neb has done it. Our culture has done it, and I want to tell you tonight, if you have not yet realized it, if you want to be a Christian in this country, the pressure is coming on you to bow down. That's our first point this evening, the pressure to bow down. Let's go on now. Think about our second point, the decision to stand up. The decision to stand up. What happens in our chapter here is as we go on, the thought police have noticed there are three men not bowing down. Verse 8, let me read it for you. And now I'm slightly abbreviating this, all right, folks? I can't do the whole flute, lyres, zither, stirrups, and all that again. So, at this time, some astrologers came forward. They denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever." Let's butter him up. "Your Majesty has issued a decree. Everyone who hears the sound of the music must fall down and worship the image. But there are some Jews who, if you have set over the affairs of your province, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they pay no attention to you." These men are brought before the king. Now, let's give the king his due. Because it says here in verse 14 that he asked them, "Is it true?" He says, "Is it true, guys, you don't serve my gods or worship the image of gold I've set up?" He says, "I will give you an opportunity here. We'll have the music played. If you fall down and worship the image, great, fire back on with your day jobs. If you don't, I'm going to throw you into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" You notice, first of all, the men are singled out for what reason? They're singled out because of their religion. You notice that came before the being thrown into the furnace and the bowing down. We've noticed some Jews singled out here. They're taken before the king. And essentially these astrologers, they tell on them, don't they? Clipe. Well, that's a good Scottish word. They cliped on them. Ratted them out. Snitched on them. And snitches get stitches. I've watched prison films. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was in their shoes and I was one of those three men, right about now, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, if I get out of this, I am so going to get you lot. I mean, that's what I'm thinking first of all. Revenge will be sweet if I get out of this. But the second thing I'm thinking is, right, boys, I think it's time to take a knee. I think, boys, it's time to let's just take a knee and say the Lord's Prayer as we're doing it. Outwardly, they'll think we're doing the right thing, but inwardly, God will know, and it'll be fine. Let's just take a knee, and I'll rationalize it to myself. I'll tell myself, look, all these people need to know about God's love for them. Let's just take a knee, and we'll have a prayer meeting of repentance later on, okay? It'll be fine. I don't know if you're like me. I don't know if you favor that idea as well, but I want to tell you why we might favor that idea. We favor it because comfort is one of our idols. We like an easy life. We don't like suffering or pain because it's not comfortable. Think about it. Why do you invest so much money in decorating your house? Why do you buy 50 cushions for the couch and you can't barely sit on it because there's so many pushing you off? Why do you spend more money when you get a car for heated window screens and a heated steering wheel? I mean, who needs a heated steering wheel? Just wear gloves, for crying out loud. But no, we'll spend the extra £500 on the comfort pack. Why do we like comfy chairs in church and not hard wooden pews? Is it not obvious? Because we are people who like our comfort. We idolize our comfort. Let me prove it to you. If you're not comfortable, I bet you're complaining. Aren't you? And yet for these three men, I want you to notice with me tonight, comfort's not an idol for them. Comfort does not come into their decision making. Listen to what they say to the king in verse 16. "Hey king, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we're thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand." Now look, notice this bit. "But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." What they say is, "Hey king, when it comes to the choice of bowing down to your statue or standing upon our beliefs, we know what we're going to do. Because this is not a question of comfort and discomfort. This is a question for us of right and wrong." And this, folks, is where the rubber meets the road for us. Because many of us tonight, we are living on the road of comfort. We make decisions based on what is most comfortable from us. We run from accountability with God because it's not comfortable to our lifestyle. We make decisions to say nothing about our faith to those who are around us because it's uncomfortable to open up and be vulnerable about what we believe. But what these men show us is that it is better to stand for the truth and face a bit of discomfort, is it not? These men show us we need to get off this road of comfort that dictates our life and get on to the road of faith. Because surely it is better to obey God and face death than find life and comfort. Jesus put it like this. He said, what does it benefit a person to gain the whole world if it costs them their soul? We all want to be comfortable, folks. I get that. We all want to be liked. I get the pressure when you feel like you're going to be the odd one out, or you're going to have to stand up and say something that others are not going to like. Nobody wants to stand out as different. We all want to please people. Maybe one of the biggest lessons we can learn tonight is that you can never control the outcome of your actions. You cannot control how other people perceive you. You cannot control how other people receive your words. You can't control how other people view you or judge you or how they are going to treat you. These men had no control over what was going to happen to them. What did they say? They said, God may save us from the flames, but then again they said, He may not. They did not know. What they concerned themselves with and what we need to concern ourselves with is the only thing that is in our control. And that is our decision to stand. Your family, you love them. You maybe want to share the gospel with them. You may be scared. What will they say? How will they react? You can't control it. The only thing you can do is decide to talk with them about it. You can't control how your colleagues at work will react to your faith, but you can take the decision to share your faith with them. You can't control what your friends are going to think of you if you tell them that you go to church. But you can take the decision that you're not going to lie to them about it and you're going to be who you are. You can try and hide your faith because you fear the outcome, or you can just live out your faith knowing you were never in control of the outcome from the beginning. You've got no say over the outcome. And all that God asks you is to do your bit. He says, leave the outcome with me. You take the decision to stand upon what you believe. Now you may believe tonight, well, that sounds lovely. Love to be able to do that, but I don't have that strength. Maybe you come to church and you look around and you say, oh, I wish I had the faith of that person. Oh, they seem so strong. I will never be like them. You know, Michelangelo, he was ordered to decorate that portion of the Sistine Chapel. And he actually said, no, thank you. He said, it's not my thing. He said, I like canvas. I don't do ceilings. And they said to him, hey, Michelangelo, you know, if you say no, by coincidence, your health might rapidly go downhill, if you get what I'm saying. Suddenly he said, okay, I'll paint your ceiling, no bother. I'll got his paint, went up the scaffolding, mixed up his colors, and do you know what happened? One of the world's finest paintings came to exist. You have more ability in you than you give yourself credit for. You use excuses to justify the fact that you don't want to stand. But if you're a Christian, you have the power of God in you. You have the Holy Spirit in you. You have the one who promised you, I will give you the words. I will be with you. You have the ability lying within you. What I want to ask you tonight is, do you have the desire? Ability and desire are often confused. You have the ability to stand, but you need to match it with the desire to stand for God. Stand in your faith. Stand against the pressure to conform and say, Lord, I would rather please you than bow down to the golden statues of my culture. There is pressure to bow down. And there is the need to stand up. Okay, let's go on to our last point tonight. Let's think about the help to keep going. As we move on, last point, we're kind of getting to the climax of the chapter, all right? King Nem throws our guys in the fire, and it's so hot, even the soldiers who bound them up and took them there, they died of their burns. But in a miraculous way, the king jumps up and he says, hey, we threw 3 in. I see 4. There's one like a son of the gods, or we'd maybe say an angel is in there with them. Now, folks, we could get all caught up in this miracle, but I think that'd be a bit of a waste of time, if I'm honest with you. Because this is what I'd love us to just spend a moment thinking about. I want you to notice here. God did not save those men from having to make the decision whether or not they would honor him with their lives. You notice that? He saves them from the flames, but he did not save them from the need to choose the flames. And that's important for us to remember. Because you are going to have to make the decision in your life whether or not you will follow God. You will not know the outcome, but you have to make the decision whether or not you will trust God with your life. It's a great verse I'd love for you to memorize tonight. I first came across it when I was watching Chariots of Fire. You remember that film? Anyone? You seen it? Anyone? No? Maybe some of you? Okay, good. Still awake. Excellent. I remember watching it. Love it. It was great, wasn't it? Yeah, you know, it's like, doom, 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 no, no, no. You know, every child who watched that went outside and nobody cared how fast you can run. It was how well you could do the slow motion, running down the beach. I remember in my early teens going to St. Andrews, that's where they filmed it, and running down the beach thinking, I'm Eric Liddell, this is great. It's all about Eric Liddell. He was a Christian man who was running the 100-yard race at the Olympics. This was before they did 100 meters. But it was a Sunday, and he said, no, I don't want to run on a Sunday because I feel it's dishonoring God. So he said, I'm going to run the 400 meters instead. Now, it wasn't expected he could win it. And so he came under huge pressure to change his mind. Even the Prince of Wales at the time came and said, look, Eric, just drop this religious stuff and represent your country. Do the 100 yards. You're going to win it for us. But his conviction was so strong. Made newspapers, made the headlines. And what happens before the race is that a French masseuse went into the changing room with a note. And he handed him a note, and it was written to him from the other members of the British athletics team. And when he opened it up, this is what it said. It says in the old book, he that honors me, I will honor. Good luck. And he went on to win. 1 Samuel 2:30. He that honors me, I will honor. Oh, I want to tell you, that's a slogan to bind on your heart as a Christian. That's a verse to live by. Even if the situation looks completely drastic, if you honor God with your decisions, he will honor you. He might not take the flames away that are going to come when you make that decision. He might not make the situation which is worrying you disappear. He may not make life easy for you. He may not make it all comfortable. You might not get to escape the discomfort which is coming your way. But I tell you this, whatever fire you are walking into, or are in the middle of, or are coming out of, if you honor God, he will walk with you. He will never leave you. He will not abandon you. The most asked question of any Christian is, why is there suffering? Why do people ask that? It's very simple, because they believe if they have God in their life, he ought to remove the flames from their life. But every Christian knows God doesn't remove the flames, he walks in the flames with us. We need to bring this to a conclusion, so let's jump forward to the New Testament, see how this plays out in our life. What do we find there? We find Jesus Christ, the Son of God, comes to this earth. It's God coming. Roll out the red carpet. No. What do we find? We find he becomes a man. He loses people he loves. He grieves like us. He's beat up. He honors his Father in heaven perfectly. And yet he's bound by sinful men and hung on a cross to die. No escape of the flames. And yet what he says to us in that death, through his fire, he says, I'm opening up a new life for you. I'm opening up a new opportunity for you to go through your life not alone. I am opening up the opportunity for you to have God in the flames with you. The disciples grasped this. They understood it. They knew that God would be with them in the flames, but they certainly knew God wasn't going to take away all the problems. One of them, he was boiled to death, pot of oil. The other one, they tried to kill him by throwing him off a roof. Guess what? It didn't work, so they went down and finished him off with some stones. One of them was crucified upside down. The Christians to come after it, they understood as well, God will be with us in the flame. They knew God wasn't going to take away the flame. They knew they would have to make decisions which would lead to the flames. And guess what? They said, feed me to the lions all you want. I will honor God with my life. The Christians to come even after them were told, if you do not bow down to what we say, we'll burn you to death. And they said, shall I light the match for you? We got it so easy. Oh, wow, somebody might make fun of me. Big deal. They burned them. They crucified them. They killed them. And yet every one of them turned around and said, I would rather honor God and go to my death than bow down and live your lie. And every single one of those people who honored God is now honored in heaven. Whatever your decision you're facing today, I want you to know this. God will never remove from you the need to make a choice of where you stand. But if you honor him, he will walk with you and face the consequences of that choice. Whether you're heading into the fire, you're in the middle of it, or you're coming out of it, you don't need to be alone. There is pressure to bow down. There is a need for us as Christians to stand up. And there is a whole army of heaven waiting to help you walk on. Let's pray.